Hello, everyone. My name is Brennan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. Welcome to the final Skeleton Crew review from Page Turners They Were Not My Star Wars podcast. Yes, last night was the final episode, the finale of Skeleton Crew. Or as Jude Law would say it, the finale. You know, in that great British accent of his. There's a lot going on in this episode. Episode 8, which is called The Real Good Guys. And there's a lot that I could say. But I want to keep my review to a few things that stood out to me. Jude Law is fantastic in this show. John Nanawad is a great character and a great villain. So I wanted to talk about his character really quick. He's obsessed with money. He says he doesn't want to hurt anybody. Except at other times he says, I'll kill who I have to. So, he's a complicated character in that sense. But I think that based on what we saw, he is consumed by nihilism and cynicism. And now we know why. He tells Ren his backstory. He was just some ragged kid, starving, probably an orphan kid, who was found by a Jedi Master. It sounds like, based on the description, that this Jedi Master was already on the run from Order 66. At least to me, that's what it means. He describes her as desperate and ragged. So I imagine that she was probably in hiding from Order 66. Found Jod, discovered he had potential, and trained him a little bit. We've seen Jod's abilities in the Force pertain only to telekinesis. As far as I can tell, meaning he is able to move objects with the Force. But that seems to be the extent of his abilities. We don't see him mind trick anyone, or use Force choke, or any of those things. But his ability to manipulate objects, that might be the only thing that his master, his informal master, ever taught him. Though we do see him use the lightsaber to block the stun bolts from the security droids. So she probably taught him a little bit how to defend himself with a lightsaber. And as he says, they found her, whether it be clone troopers or inquisitors, and murdered her while he watched. And then he says, that's the galaxy. That is his view of the universe. That it is dark and cold and soulless. And in real life, there is a parallel because there are people who see all the bad news going on. And that's all they can see. Nihilism and cynicism creep in, and they become apathetic. They don't care. Jod is in the same boat. I think he believes that credits can buy happiness. Or, at least in his case, a more comfortable existence. So, that's an interesting bit of Jod's backstory, and let me just jump ahead to the end. The way his character ends, he doesn't die. He doesn't get redeemed. What is he? He sits there looking, or stands there, literally watching his dream come crashing down. The pirate ship crashes in flame. And Jod has a look on his face of sadness and misery, and in fact, a pathetic look on his face. That's how some villains end. Pathetic. Yeah, his dreams come crashing down. That's the last we see of him. What's going to happen to him now? Well, that's where our imaginations can come in and have a little bit of fun. Star Wars has always, even from the original film, given us unanswered questions so that we, as the audience, can start thinking and dreaming and imagining. This episode does not tie up every thread. We don't know the full story of Takranad. We don't know if he established this society. How long has this been going on? So now we know who the supervisor is. Did Takranad set up the supervisor? What's going to happen to all that money? What is the New Republic going to do with that? Other questions such as, what happens now? What happens to Jod? Many questions that are unanswered. But I think that's okay. Because then you can imagine, and I'll bet you anything that they're going to in some way, spin off into books, comics, references on other shows. Even though this is the end of Skeleton Crew, I don't think this will be the end of the storytelling that can be done in this time period. Also, this place takes place at the same time as The Mandalorian. How is that going to connect? I don't know. And I like that I don't know. Okay, let me talk about a few other things that stood out to me. Wendell, Wynn's dad. Wynn's dad had given up the inner child. He had devoted himself to his job and had become apathetic, I think. He only cared about doing his job. He didn't care whether it was the right thing to do. And he never questioned it. In this episode, he finally questions the system. In fact, I would argue that questioning the system is the storyline through Wendell and through Thorne's mom, Farrah. The parents finally have to take a stand. And not just the apathetic bystanders. Thorne, throughout this episode, is telling her mom, please, Mom, please do something. Farrah is very much by the rules. She wants to follow the system and is putting that system above the needs of her daughter. Wendell was doing the same thing. Wendell had a great arc in this episode. First, he was trying to tell the kids, stay here, don't get involved, don't do anything. And at first he tries to stop them, but eventually joins in, and we get a great E.T. moment of Thorne, KD, Wynn, and Wendell on speeder bikes, going through the woods with their lights flashing. They jump over the chasm in very E.T. moment. Like the bicycles in E.T. when they escape from the cops. That's exactly the feeling I got here. And Wendell finally embracing his inner child. He probably drove around those woods when he was a kid, but had forgotten and become so much a part of the system. So getting to see that was really neat. When Wendell was with Wynn, turning off the barrier, we get a great moment of Wendell giving a major punch to Jod's face. Wendell finally took a stand. In fact, punching uh, Jod, I think ultimately saved the day. Because it allowed Wynn to get the lightsaber. It allowed Wendell to try to get the switch that would turn off the barrier. Until another Terrant finally took a stand. Farah did, and helped Wendell turn off the barrier. She finally made a choice and took a stand. Now, why does John surrender when the barrier goes down and Wynn has his lightsaber? Wynn is probably not very good with the lightsaber, and John could have threatened Farah and Wendell with his blaster. I think he surrendered because he knew his plans had been ruined. The barrier went down, and a bunch of X-Wings come in and blow the pirates out of the sky. The other thing that stood out to me in this episode, when KD crash lands the Onyx Cinder in the school's testing room. Now, the reason I think that's interesting is crashing into the testing room. That was the real test. Their adventure, the whole adventure of this series, that was the real test. Not these academic placement tests. But the adventure was the real test. And then the door of the Onyx Cinder opens, and out spills a bunch of credits, which John was going to take away from the vaults. But what else spills out? KD does. Almost as if to say, that's the real treasure. Their friendship, their love as a group, that's the real treasure. So those are a few thoughts. Yet again, we saw Neil taking a double bath, as he does. But it's really so moving in many ways, this whole episode. Of really getting down to what is the core. What is the message here? The message is that love is the greatest treasure. And more than that, you cannot afford to be an idle spectator. Sometimes you have to take a stand. And that's what the parents learn to do. I'm kind of sad that this show is over. I have enjoyed it immensely. And also, as we saw, Neil used the gun on top of the school. So, a great callback to Hannah in the 4th episode. This has been a delight. And I'm sad that this is the final review of Skeleton Crew. But I know that there is more to come. And I don't know what that will be. But I think it's nice to see that I like the show, and most fans like the show. I have heard very little in the way of negativity about this show. And that is yet again another treasure. So those are my final thoughts on Skeleton Crew. And I gotta say, the actors have been outstanding in this series. Particularly Jude Law. But the four kids have been terrific. With Neil being the show stealer, as always. Well, those are my thoughts on the finale of Skeleton Crew. The real good guys. My name is Brennan Moore. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. Thank you for tuning in. The page turners they were not. My Star Wars podcast. Our mateys. May the Force be with you.